I don't know if we're live yet. Matt, can you see me? Matt Belizia. I see you just texted something there. Can you see me? Are we live?
We are live. I'm just waiting to see if you guys out there in viewership land can see us or hear us.
Anybody, somebody write on the chat there. Can you see us? I don't see us live on the Facebook thing anymore. Oh, this really sucks.
Okay, mine's loading yet. It says I have a live. Yeah, I can see us.
Oh. I don't know what the hell is going on. All right, I'm going to slide this tab back. I don't know what the fuck is going on. All right, anybody, Leslie, can you hear us? See us? Oh, no, I got to write her back. Yeah, what's looking on our Xplorers Facebook page right now says live video has ended. It'll be available to watch on Xplorers Secrets of the Truth timeline shortly. Follow us to see more. So we're not even... Huh?
I got one above that has us as live.
Well, why the fuck? Or why can't I see it? Reload.
Yeah, that's what I had to do.
Oh, boy. Well, if anybody could hear us out there, I think I see us now. Okay. If anybody out there write on our little post there so I know that people are able to see us. Anybody.
Can you hear us now?
Oh, Leslie says, cool. I see you now.
And she hears us too. That's
all right,
good.
Okay. Matt Belizzi, are you still out there, buddy? I know you were watching. Are you there? Hopefully we didn't lose Matt. Our only other viewer. Come on, we're trying to entertain two people here. Okay, well, anyways, I apologize for the technical difficulties. Please bear with us. Like I said, this is brand new. We've never used this app live before. We've been practicing and working on it behind the scenes, but we had never gone live, so I apologize. Now, for those who were listening to my story before, I don't know where I got before it got cut off, but I'll give you a recap. We're talking about some of the new equipment that we have purchased since the last time we had any kind of a podcast or interaction. And Chad had shown on the video, we got point of view glasses. And they're basically sunglasses that you could wear. You could change the lenses out, but they have a video camera in it, so you would be able to see exactly what we're seeing while we're doing our investigations. And I was talking about the Haldeman Mansion outside of Harrisburg when we were doing an investigation without the POVs, and this is one of the things that really made us want to buy a pair and test them. We were walking through the rooms on the second floor of the Haldeman Mansion. Chad, if you could bring that back up on the background, please. The Haldeman Mansion was originally built in the 1700s and has expanded again in the 1800s. The structure's huge, but the center rooms in the top were supposed to be the children's room of the Haldeman family. And as we were coming through one, all the rooms kind of led into each other. We were coming through the one. Chad had his handheld video camera facing basically my back and ahead of us as we were walking through the first child's room. And out of the corner of our eyes, through the doorway into the second room, we saw what we both could describe as about a 5 or 6 year old boy. Had the old, I mean, it was very quick, like the what we saw. But all I was able to make out was kind of like Jim Carrey and Dumb and Dumber style haircut, like a bowl cut, shaggy top, but bowl cut. a light-colored button-up shirt, suspenders, and dark pants. And he was kind of crouching down in the corner, almost as if he was like watching us, but like hiding or something. It was very weird. And it was just ironic how we both saw it. We both reacted at the exact same time. After we acknowledged that we saw something, we immediately went into that room. We started asking questions, trying to interact, and then we heard something outside of that room is kind of
master staircase.
Yeah, it was like a big open, almost like foyer, if you will, on every room. Like when you walk into a stair, it was just very strange. So we heard something go out there, and then that staircase led up to the third floor, which was the attic, or is the attic, and we were going to go up there, but there was a sign that says "Do not enter," and the place was falling apart in certain areas. And Chad and I are not little boys, and I actually tried to talk him to get the hell off the steps because he was just going to go up, and I didn't want him to get hurt. But as he was ascending the steps, and I told him, I was like, dude, stop, don't go up there. I don't know if they're safe. There's a sign, blah, blah, blah. I'm always the cautious one because I'm, like that. We both stopped. We were looking at each other. And before we could react, we heard what sounded like if you're playing pool, the balls, the hard pool balls, like bounce and roll across the floor. It came from the attic, and it was just strange how it all happened. Point of this story is if we had the POV glasses, you would have been able to see what we saw. So, Chad picked up a pair while he was down at Gettysburg at the Gettysburg Ghost Exchange is the shop. We'll give them a plug because they are really wonderful people. Always nice every time we're down there, and they have a nice arrangement or a nice selection of devices at fairly decent prices. None of this stuff is cheap, but it's worth the investment. Yeah. And if you ever have any questions on anything, we have basically everything. We could tell you what we like and what we don't like about it. Again, back to as we were talking about some of the new equipment. The POV glasses are brand new. We have not used them in an investigation yet. We've only used them Chad owns them, so he's the one who's been kind of playing around with them. We've been sending video back and forth and analyzing it. I think they're going to be a really great piece to our collection of millions of devices. Some of the other things we got, like I said, we have an EM pump, which is basically a little box. It's like a square vibrator. All it does is it vibrates the whole time you're using it.
Hey, it's got a blue light.
It's got a blue light, so it does do that. It's loud as hell. I don't know if I just got a bad one, but it is very, very loud. Basically, what it does is it emits electromagnetic frequencies to kind of amplify the energy to try and give spirits a little extra something to try and communicate or manifest or whatever you want it. We've used it 1,000,001 times. We do know that it does something because all of our sensitive equipment that registers electromagnetic frequencies, they all react when that goes off. Have we had any kind of heightened activity levels? Not like you see on TV. So, I mean, it's a nice piece to have. It's something that we continue to test. But as of right now, really nothing. We have 6 REM pods that we added to the arsenal. They're basically little boxes with a blue light and an antenna. They're sensitive to anything that comes within their little range of the antenna. We use them kind of like a K2 meter where you say, can you make that light up? Just go near it, blah, blah, blah. I don't think we've really had any success with them yet either. But again, we're going to keep using them. We're going to keep using them until we get something because they are sensitive. We've tested them. They do work. You could put your hand near them. You could move objects near them. They do react. We also added the Mel meter, which is kind of a pricey device. It basically reads the temperature that's around you. It's sensitive to electromagnetic frequencies. It's kind of a all-in-one little device. Personally, I love having that around just because as we're asking questions, whenever we do get any kind of a response, or if we're going around and we feel something, we see if there's a fluctuation in temperature, we see if there's a fluctuation in the frequencies. So that we've actually had a lot of, for lack of better terms, I guess, justifiable, Chad, kind of.
We've gotten responses with it where it's definitely, matched up with, different temperatures.
Mm-hmm.
The nice thing about it really is instead of carrying 3 different tools with you when you're, doing a sweep of a building or a house like the Haldeman, which is, from the picture, folks, you don't even understand how big it really is. It looks like this
Massive.
Normal little house. And you got to understand, there is, I think, over 12 big rooms in that house. I mean, the going back to Les's story, and it was one of those things where it wasn't the middle of the night when we saw this, so it's not super dark. It's actually still light outside as we're walking through. It's at dusk time. And it's one of those things where you're walking by a doorway and, you're in a haunted house, whatever, haunted mansion, whatever they want to consider it. But I've never really stopped dead in my tracks unless I've really thought I saw something. And for both of us, walking on an angle by this doorway to stop, both of us dead stop. And as we, stop, to me, the kid almost looked like if you caught a little kid playing with it was at a fireplace is where the area where we would have seen him, and it was almost like the kid was playing with the fireplace and got caught and had that shocked look on his face, like, am I going to get in trouble for this? It was just one of those moments where, it was over that quick, but at the same time, you kind of get a picture of what you're seeing very quickly. Now we spent a lot of time, and we're going to cover more with the Haldeman as we do these shows. We spent a lot of time in that room. We did not really in that room get anything substantial. We did use the millimeter in there, which was great and some of the pods, because, it was a lot easier to sit that on a table, have one tool, and not be sitting there with a thermometer and, your K2 and everything else running. And we've also run the millimeter with a K2 to see if they're getting similar changes in the numbers and in the lights on the K2. And we've done really well with that. All this equipment, though, folks, it's all subjective. We haven't proven the existence of an afterlife or anything like that. So we're just looking for the, little clues that are going to help lead to that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Les, do you have any more on the equipment, or, do you want to?
Well, as far as the equipment goes, I'll keep it short because I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on that. But we did get a closed circuit TV system, kind of like what you see Taps use and Ghost Adventures, and it just makes sense. So now when we're out investigating, we have our base camp, if you will, where we have a large screen monitor with us at all times, and we have multiple cameras running as static cams throughout the rooms. While we're walking around, we always have either a handheld or now the POV glasses we're going to be using, but there's going to be cameras running at any given time, and we'll always have somebody dedicated to being back at the or 2 people, because there's multiple monitors. There's always going to be people back at the base camp that are going to be watching while the other groups are out investigating. We radio each other, say, hey, we saw A, B, and C, blah, blah, blah. Now, granted, when we were at the Haldeman, we didn't we didn't have, there was nothing that we needed to call anybody out for. So, unfortunately, but point being is it's a really great tool to have, because now we're going to be able to have multiple eyes out there all the time throughout the entire investigation at all times, which is really great. Now, it does create a lot more evidence that needs to be reviewed, but at the same time, I'd rather spend the extra time, or Chad spend the extra time going through all the evidence, making sure that, you know, we didn't miss anything. And actually, we did get, or what? No, that was the handheld that we got the, well, we'll talk about that when we get to that section of the show, but it's pretty exciting, and it was pretty neat. And then one of the other things were that we picked up cheap off eBay was a digital thermometer, another piece that while we're having some, you know, if we don't have a millimeter, like I like to have different things in different rooms. Like we have the static cams, we could have one of these little digital thermometers just within the eyesight of the camera. So that way, if there is something like, oh wait, I just saw something, well, maybe it would be picked up on the thermometer, and it kind of, in a way, validates, okay, well, I saw something. There you go. In the background of the screen, they're just little tiny thermometers that pick up around you. They give you the time, so you could track the time, the percent of the humidity in the room, the temperature. So that way, if you do see something, you're like, all right, well, at 10:45 or 10:24, whatever it says there, you know, the temperature dropped X amount of degrees, and we saw something in the background, a shadow or this or that, or something came in front of the screen. So I figured, you know, not a bad thing to have. And they're cheap. There's, you know, we have a few of them now, so we could put them with the static cams just to kind of, again, validate anything that we might see on screen, might help validate. And the other thing is, actually, my wife found this one when we were on vacation with our kids, and I think it's awesome. It's, I don't know if you can see it. It's just, I didn't even take it. There we go. I didn't even take it out of the pack yet. Can you see it? It's basically a little tube that has lights in it, and you hold on one side, and it will not react unless it has a current of or a current flow or something. And if you hold it together, and ironically, it has like the cheesy Halloween decoration noise, but it's audio and it's visual. And again, you could hold 6 people's hands as long as there's a continuous link for energy to flow, and somebody holds the other side, it will react. Now, I think this is going to be kind of cool. You can set it on the table and have them, you know, or ask a possible spirit, you know, touch the both sides, or I'll hold one side, you know, grab my hand and touch the other side. Just another thing to try and draw up some kind of evidence or activity or something. I don't know. I'm really excited about this one. I think it was a great find on her behalf, and it was freaking cheap, so I'm not breaking the bank on it either, so I was allowed to get it. I forgot she's watching. Yeah, but anyways, that's kind of the rundown on the equipment. We have been using trail cams, which most people now, again, well, I don't want to say again, but for those who don't know, the Xplorers, our group, is not just paranormal. Paranormal is huge in what we do. That is ingenious. Yes, it is. But anyways, what was I saying? We don't just investigate ghosts or look for ghosts and stuff like that. We go after anything unknown. And one of the things that are very near and dear to my heart, which I don't know if you can see in my studio behind me, I have Bigfoot stuff everywhere. When we go out investigating possible Bigfoot sightings and stuff like that, I have more trail cams than I probably need. But we're starting to incorporate them into the excuse me, paranormal investigations now, because they're triggered by motion and heat and all that stuff. So rather than having a static cam running 24/7 or running continuously while we're investigating, if we're doing, you know, an all-nighter, that's a lot of footage to go back. But if we have the trail cams and it's only picking up movement, well, okay, well, this one has 6 videos. Well, there's only 6 videos that are X amount of minutes or seconds long. So, it's a nice piece to have, But anyways, that is basically the rundown on the new equipment that we got since the last time we talked to you all. And welcome. I see in our little chat thing, a lot of people are joining the show, or a couple people. Welcome. Thanks for watching.
So, Les, let's talk about some places that we've been lately.
Mm-hmm.
Tonight we're going to really talk about the town of Gettysburg, not necessarily just the 3 days in 1863. And a lot of people, that's all they know the town for. And
the Battle of Gettysburg, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you just a brief, little overview on the history of the area. I'm going to start out with the Native American, the Iroquois Indians. That was their, territory. They speak of many battles happening in and around Gettysburg and in the, farmland around there. They especially speak of Devil's Den. It was not known as Devil's Den to them. But they speak of that area, the rocks, as being something special, and brother fighting brother, even almost predicting stuff that goes on in the Civil War in their folklore and legend of the area. Now, I know when they were doing some aerial photos for the 150th anniversary, one of the things they actually came across, now this is an alleged thing, but possible Native American burial mounds were found in this area. Again, there's still research being done on that. I'm not holding my breath that they find this. If you're looking for a burial mound, you'll find a burial mound in a pile of dirt that I just threw out in the yard. So that's, something about, to look into. Maybe future information will be coming out on. Basically, the land was purchased by William Penn in 1736 from the Iroquois Indians. The area was settled by Samuel Getty. He built his tavern in about 1761. Major reason being it was just part of the trade routes, between Shippensburg and Baltimore and Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. It's a carriage stopover and stuff like that. Eventually the railroad comes. It becomes very important because, again, it's on 2 major rail lines that connect those areas. Around 1776, the Reverend Dalbin establishes his homestead in the southwest of town. It's the Dobbin House that people go to and eat now, and people claim to see ghosts and all that crazy stuff at. Now what you got to understand, when all this is being settled, this is still a site for Native American attacks on the settlers there. The town was, really settled out about 1780. It's incorporated in around 1806. The Lutheran Seminary at Gettysburg was established August 1st of 1826. The railroad was finished around 1858-ish, connecting Hanover to Gettysburg. There's a few famous people that come from that area. Gettysburg Eddie Plank. Les and I love that restaurant. A lot of our time in Gettysburg revolves around restaurant to restaurant eating.
And cigar bars.
And cigar bars, and then an investigation, and then eating again. So, we're not little guys.
No,
but
we need to fuel these bodies.
Yeah. The guy who actually founded Studebaker cars, which is probably something most of us never have seen, real Studebaker cars, but he was born in Gettysburg in the 1830s. There was Brian Patrick Clark, was known as Merle the Pearl Stockwell on 8 is Enough. I don't remember that show, so.
Oh my God, are you serious? You don't remember 8 is Enough?
No, I don't remember why.
I guess I can understand why.
Yeah, that's not. I mean, I remember Perfect Strangers for some stupid reason, but
Well, of course. Well, I think one of the things that really draws us to Gettysburg in particular is just the brutal nature of how that war basically how it went down. A lot of people died. A lot of people lost their lives suddenly and tragically. There's a lot of energy, a lot of I don't even know. Just everything that happened down there was tragic. And I think that for me personally, now I know, Chad, you're a big history buff, so I know the history really lures you in, and it does for me to a point. But just on the paranormal aspect, I've always been drawn to Gettysburg for that specific reason, just because of the sheer amount of death that occurred at a very short amount of time. And there's so many different locations down there that are public and private. And we hit a lot of now granted, of course, you have the major touristy ghost places, which I think are getting a little bit too numerous nowadays, as there's too much of that and not enough of the actual, I guess, legitimate, if you will. I think a lot of, because if you go on the ghost tours, a lot of the stories are different. Same places, different stories are said in a different way, and a lot of them kind of contradict each other. But anyway, one of the private places, or I guess somewhat private places, it's a private owned property, but now it's kind of open to the public. What's the name of that barn?
The David Stewart.
Yes. I don't know. Why can't I remember that? The David Stewart barn, which is pictured right there, is actually a bed and breakfast now. Wonderful place. We've actually had the privilege of staying there. Chad and I stayed there with our significant others. And the house, the history, the land, absolutely beautiful. If you do go down there, it's right outside of town too. It's not far outside of town. So if you don't want to stay in town and have all the hustle and bustle, this is beautiful to go out there. But point, in history, the farm or the barn was used as a field hospital during the time of the battle. So a lot of people were injured. A lot of people were there to seek help, medical help. They lost limbs. They lost lives. They lost everything. And we had the honor to investigate there. We were out in the barn. We had there's the barn, actually. That's behind the main house. Excuse me. M&M's, sorry. But we were in the barn a few times. We had some activity. We were playing back some Civil War music or Civil War era music, stuff that they might have played between battles while they're at camp and whatnot to boost everybody's spirits. And we actually did with like a lot of noises. We heard a lot of noises. Now, granted, again, I'm very, very much a skeptic, and I don't want to jump the gun or jump to conclusions and say that, oh, well, it was this, or, oh, my God, that was... No, I tried to break it down first. We heard a lot of noises. And as one of our newest members, Russ, I wish we could play video on this thing in the background, because, boy, would that be great. One of our newest members, Russ, he was there and had almost had his he almost lost his last meal because a cat came up when he was asking questions, and he was looking for a response, and this cat came out of nowhere and scared the life out of him. Oh my God, we got it on video. It was awesome. It was so funny. But again, everything is so subjective because there was so much going on in there. There was bats, there was mice, there were cats, there was so much. A lot of the stuff kind of did coincide with questions that we asked, but again, I couldn't prove it. There were too many things that would disprove it, so
Yeah, one of the things you got to understand, poor Russ, this is his first investigation ever. And he is trying to fit in with, go with the flow. He's a great guy. And he's asking, we're like, Russ, we're going to turn this over to you, let you ask a few questions.
He asked great questions.
Great questions. And
the cat obliged.
We're hearing stuff, and Russ is really getting into it. And all of a sudden, this cat just brushes his pants leg. And he cleared his chair that he was sitting in, was up and screamed. And I mean,
It was classic.
If it would have been me, I probably would have been sitting in Les's lap because I would have done the same thing. But it was just first investigation out. He gets that as an experience. Now, some of the evidence that that we actually have captured, we've posted on YouTube and on our Facebook page. One time we were there, I think it was just you and I that time, Les. And it was the first time we did it. You got to understand, this is on the Airbnb top 10 haunted bed and breakfast to stay at. It is a great location, and Stephanie, who's the owner of the place, is a lovely lady. She, there's an actual paid tour that goes there every night and does an investigation. But if you're staying there, she has a great arrangement worked out with them. It's free for you to go. One of the things while we were there, first time there, and it was a Civil War hospital. Now, mostly used at the climax of the battle, not really necessarily used too much early in the fighting. And one of the things, I was asking questions, and I'm going through the questions, and I'm asking, I say, where were you wounded? And I start using modern names around town. Now, you got to realize this was on the Confederate side of the battlefield, where most times when battles are named from a Civil War, when the Confederates won the battle, it's named usually after, certain things like a town and stuff like that, where when the Union wins, it's generally named after like a river, a creek, or something like that. So I'm asking modern names. I'm like Devil's Den, the wheat field, the peach orchard, Pickett's Charge. And, I stopped giving answers basically. And there's dead silence for like 10 seconds. And after about that 10 seconds, you hear this G. And it goes, it's just a real big G. And then it goes, Gettysburg. And now, I heard it instantly when I replayed it, when I was reviewing the evidence. I played it for a few other people. First, probably 9 out of 10 people heard it. They kind of got the idea that it was Gettysburg. Some people had heard some other stuff. My wife was like Spaceman. I don't know where she got that from, but that was what she thought she heard. Now, it's subjective. We're listening to audio that's recorded, that we're looking to hear something. Could it be, a good EVP? I kind of stand to it because, like I said, I heard it with my bare ears, and I have terrible hearing to start with. And I heard it on playback. I instantly heard the G, and then it goes Gettysburg. So, that's something we caught there.
Yep. I now, again, we don't say that it is a ghost or anything like that. It's just stuff that we find that was odd or coincided with questions. It's definitely something. I remember when he played that back for me, it was a distinct voice. It wasn't just like what's the word I'm looking for? Like sound. Just, it wasn't like a pixelated sound or something like that, or fractals or whatever you want to call it. It was a voice. Like, you heard a voice. But again, you don't know.
Now,
subjective.
Yeah, I mean, folks, you got to understand, evidence to something that is considered not to exist is always going to be subjective until somebody in a laboratory can reproduce these results. It's a scientific method, and then somebody else has got to reproduce them, and then they accept it. Right now, it's been around. People have been seeing ghosts for thousands, basically since the dawn of man. But to have definitive proof, which I always love when these people, proof that my theory is right, and it's some piece of evidence. It's like, No, that's just possibly evidence to what you're doing. But we'd like to scoop, something that is going to be, I believe, on Destination America. I don't know. I don't watch the channel. The David Stewart farm will actually be featured on the first episode of a new Ghost program that'll premiere, I believe it's August 15th of this year. And I don't know much about the show. It's not us doing the show, so I really don't give much thought to it. Now, you also got to understand, Ghost Detective Season 3, Episode 9 was done at the David Stewart farm. Like I said, it's a very, you can pay to go there. You can also rent the place. I mean, renting the house and just being on the property it's an amazing piece of property. And like we said, Stephanie is awesome.
Very awesome.
She's treated us so good, every time we've went there. I mean, we've stayed there and investigated, and also called her and been like, Les and I are in town. We want to investigate. Can we come over? And she's like, yeah, come on over.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, she was super accommodative.
Yeah.
And like we had said, like we got some interesting responses, I guess, for lack of a better term, to a lot of the questions that we had asked, to the music that we played, just odd things. But again, nothing that I would say is concrete.
Yeah.
But again, like another thing that we love so much about Gettysburg, and we're sticking to Gettysburg particularly on this episode just because it was one of the most recent places, and this is more or less a recap of what we've been up to. As we start doing more places and stuff like that, like residential areas and stuff like that, we have a few residentials, but we're not at liberty to talk about them right now. But we're talking about Gettysburg. It's a place that anybody could go to, obviously, and you can kind of go and check these places out on your own. And again, like I said, with the history of Gettysburg and all that had happened, it's the perfect recipe for paranormal activity. One of the other places that we had gone to down there, do you care if I just start rattling off a list, or do you have anything in particular you want to talk about? It's like we could talk about the orphanage or whatever one you want to talk about.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Gettysburg Hotel.
Oh, yeah.
Hotel in downtown. Awesome. I'm going to pop up a picture so you folks know what we're talking about. Most of you people that, folks that have been to Gettysburg will recognize that hotel. Mm-hmm. That hotel, it's been around since the 1790s. Not necessarily that hotel there. It has burnt down over the years and been rebuilt. And, it's basically, it's dead center in town. So, somewhere you can get to everywhere from.
Yeah, right in the square, centrally located. It's awesome. And didn't Abe Lincoln stayed there when he was giving the address?
No, he actually stayed down the street.
Okay. All
at
right.
the Howard
I wasn't sure. But I don't know history. You go on with it. I'm trying to be smart and I'm failing, so I'll let you take this.
I made the joke about the Howard Johnson. That's where he stayed, but you fluff right over my jokes whenever you need to. Yeah. Les knows this. I was actually married in the Gettysburg Hotel. Mm-hmm. And during the reception, we're sitting there eating dinner. And there's music playing, and you got to understand, the reception area has this, nice wooden dance floor, over in the side of the room. We're sitting up on a big stage above everybody. And then there's the bank vault to your far left from where I was sitting. And we're sitting there talking and we're eating, and people are, music's playing, people are going to and from the bar and stuff like that. And just randomly, I happened to look over towards the vault. And the dance floor is over in that area. And it was just a flash. But I saw this, what I thought was just somebody dressed in white or something like that, go across the dance floor, almost like they were dancing. Yet when I looked back over there was nobody on the dance floor. Pretty much everybody was still seated at the tables. And it actually brings us to one of the spirits there, known as the Dancing Lady of the Gettysburg Hotel. I've heard two different versions of this story over the years. You got to understand, I talk to a lot of people when I'm there, and I get a lot of different, I have the historical guide giving me a story. I have the guy who's trying to sell me a ghost tour giving me a story.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about before, where your stories, you don't know what story to believe, with a lot of the...
Yeah, you got to realize in Gettysburg, the Battle of Gettysburg, 51,000 people died, casualties basically related from that battle. 8,000 lay dead on the field on the 4th of July. But 51,000, now you got to understand, put that into context, 51,000 is actually, I believe, 1,000 less than we lost in Vietnam over 10 years. Now, the Civil War, basically 1861 to 1865, formal declaration of the cessation of war, I believe, was 1867, but that was just a formality. The war had actually ended in 1865. The president just basically got around to signing the paperwork, at that point. But, there's two versions of the story. There's just the woman dancing on the dance floor, lost love, and then there's the other version of this story where the dancing lady and the nurse that people see walking around looking for, linens are actually, in some people's accounts, are the same people. You got to realize any building in Gettysburg that was substantial during 1863 probably was used as a field hospital of some some shape or form. It may have only been for a few hours. It may have just been to hide out from shelling. But this nurse has been seen walking through the upper floors of the hotel, basically looking for linen, is what they say. Some people claim to have talked to her at certain points, and she basically is looking for bandages, linens being used as bandages. Other people say it's basically the dancing lady, and they're the same spirit. Like I said, it was a corner of my eye type thing. It was my wedding day. I married, my wife, who I'd basically been chasing for a long time at that point. I hope she's not watching. But, so, the building itself is a great building. I think, Les, you've stayed there before. I've stayed there a couple times.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh no, the hotel itself is awesome. Great breakfast, by the way. A little side note there in the morning. But you could just, did you ever go into a place and you could just almost kind of sense the history in it? That to me is kind of like the feeling I got in the Gettysburg hotels. You could just feel history in that place. But it's a very clean place. It's not like it's old, creepy. It's gorgeous place.
Yeah. I mean, you got to figure at one point in 1955, when President Eisenhower was recovering from a heart attack, the hotel that we have pictured here became an extension of the White House while he was recovering. So, it's been burnt. It has burnt down over the years and has been rebuilt. It was actually in 1983. It was destroyed in a fire, and it wasn't reopened until 91. So it's burnt down a few times. It's been rebuilt. They bought out the bank that was next to it. That's where they hold the weddings and stuff like that, and parties, galas and stuff like that. If anybody's thinking about getting married, definitely it's basically. You basically sit down with a wedding planner and you go through everything and you put everything together, and it's so simple. I was actually part of the planning process. That's how simple it was. But let's talk about, the Homestead Orphanage. That's
that place creeps me out. I mean, just the stories of that place. Now I guess the was it during the time of the again, I need your historical facts here.
Mm-hmm.
Was it the orphanage? It was the orphanage during the time of the battle, or after, because the kids were orphaned?
After the battle. During the battle, it was actually used as headquarters for I believe it was General Howard of the Union Army, the 11th Corps of the, Union 11th Corps. That was their headquarters in that house.
Uh-huh.
It was also used by Union sharpshooters to counter the rebel snipers that would have been in the area of the Farnsworth and stuff like that.
Great place to eat.
Another restaurant plug for us. The Farnsworth. But
yeah, place is awesome.
So it doesn't
no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but after the war, I guess all the parents of these kids, well, I don't want to say all the parents, but a lot of the parents they died in the war. And these kids were left orphaned. The building was turned into the orphanage, and the headmistress, was she the original that we're going to the one we're going to talk about? Was she the original, or did she come in later?
She actually comes in later. I can give you guys a brief history on the orphanage. It opens in 1867 and was run. Actually, if you look at the photo behind us, there's 3 children in the picture behind my screen, and there's a gentleman's picture behind Les. That is the Union soldier Humiston.
Yeah, don't ask me. I don't know how to pronounce it.
He was shot and killed during the Battle of Gettysburg, and as he laid there dying, he took the photo that you see under me of his 3 children and held it. And basically, when they come, a young girl found the body in the barn. He was basically, I believe it was the first day. He may have, it may have taken him until the second day to actually bleed out and die, but he was wounded on the first day as the Union's being driven through the town. And he laid there holding this ambrotype. It's a type of photograph of his 3 children. The young girl finds it. Her father owned one of the local taverns. They basically have this photo. Nobody knows who it is. Dr. Burns basically publicizes the photo around the country. Newspapers start picking up on the copy, and it gets to New York, Portville, New York, and finds the mother of those 3 children and who has lost her husband. And they basically bring her to Gettysburg and give her a job. Now, what people got to understand is when a father died back then, the mother and the children were basically both considered orphans. The mother wasn't considered capable, really, of handling the children on her own.
Well, that wouldn't fly nowadays.
Oh, no, that wouldn't work nowadays. So when Amos Humiston, is found dead, they find the photo, they take it. His wife is now offered the job of being the head mistress at the Homestead Orphanage in Gettysburg. And so she brings her children and her, and basically she works there until basically around 1870. And a lady by the name of Rosa A. Carmichael takes over. Let me give you a description of Rosa from an early review of her performance. For equals and most audacious and faithful worker. Few equals. Okay? Now, when she starts there, she isn't this brutal person she becomes. Basically, about 1870-ish, the money for these orphans is starting to run out. So, 1867, Civil War is still fresh. There's basically 60 children brought there from 11 different states. So the states are sending money and all this. So there's money coming in. There's, the ability to do stuff. There's the ability to hire people. Around 1870, the support starts to wane off. And now Rose is left, with these children, lack of funds coming in. I mean, not to justify what she did in any sense of the imagination, but look at our own later in history, other places that we will be investigating in the future and places we've been before that were left in charge of children that were mentally disabled. And when the funding or when the overcrowding started happening, the abuse starts happening.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, Rosa gets arrested in June of 1867 for cruelty to the children. She's held for $300 bail. She's indicted on 3 counts of aggravated assault and battery. She's found guilty on 1 count. She's fined $20 plus court costs. Basically, she got away with it. She got away with it for one reason. She was a woman. She gets away, and basically it is a stated fact. She gets away with this abuse because she's a woman. And, there's, basically walks away with a $20 fine. And when she walks away with that $20 fine, it's a slap on the wrist. And basically the scandal spreads over the next, few months. And there's a report in Waynesboro Village. It's actually featured in the newspaper at this point of a 16-year-old boy who shows up missing part of his left arm and claims to have come from the homestead. Basically, the descriptions, he's extremely dirty, no shoes. And he tells a story of his 2 sisters, Lizzie and Bella. The Hunters is their last name. They're both about 17. They were forced to wear boys' clothes, do all the menial work around the house and stuff like that. And when they're done doing the work, they're locked in a room and just left there. So as you go, the stories keep piling on about Rosa, how much of it is true. Dr. Burns, he was still involved in the institution at that part. How much involvement did he have? Some people say they could have possibly been a romantic connection between those two. That's something we learned on our last investigation. There was talking to one of the people that works there on a regular basis. But you basically have this building that you see here in the background. I'm going to actually flip to a few of the photos that show you some of the areas in the basement of the house where a lot of the cruelty and paranormal activity is basically happening. Not saying that doesn't happen in other rooms. This is always the areas people focus on. This is the main area of the basement. There's a table you can see in the corner underneath me there that basically people leave gifts for the children. There's some benches in this area. And actually on the wall, basically behind where this photo was taken, you would see the shackles that remain on the wall that were used to hold children in there.
Yeah, this Rosa Carmichael would force small kids, or she would have the older kids take the young kids down in the basement, and she would leave them, shackle them to the wall. Now imagine like 3 to like maybe 8-year-old kids, little kids. She would have them forced down there as a punishment and would be locked down there for days at a time. And one of the places down in the basement, and do you have a picture of this, Chad? It's known as the pit. It's literally a hole in the wall in the basement. The ground is dirt. The wall is stone. It is pitch black. We've been down there, lights out. You can't see the hand in front of your face if you held it up. It is so dark, so creepy. I couldn't imagine. I have 2 small kids of my own. I couldn't imagine either one of them being subjected to that, like just the mental trauma that they had to have experienced. I couldn't even fathom. My heart breaks for these poor kids. Like if this stuff actually happened, my heart breaks for them. And this woman was so sadistic and so cruel and almost like she would reward the older kids for doing this. Like they would almost be like to eliminate themselves from any kind of torture or punishment. They would do these things to the small kids, and I'm sure there was all different kinds of abuse, physical, mental, sexual abuse, all to children. God, that's the thing that just gets me is I cannot. Oh, it makes me sick to my stomach. Every time I'm there, I just feel so uncomfortable being a father, just thinking, God, that could have, if that were my kids, like, oh, geez, I couldn't imagine. Like I said, my heart breaks for these kids. Before we get into our investigations and some of the things that we had experienced there, do you have anything else you want to add to that, to the history and whatnot, Chad?
Historically, we've covered a lot of the history. There's a few things,
Now she was never found after that, right? She almost like disappeared.
Yeah, she pretty much walked away, and except for a few stories here and there over the years that kind of match her, no one knows where she went.
Because it was almost to the point where she was going to be tried, and you know what I mean? She could have been in a heap of trouble, but then all of a sudden she's just gone. And when they try to look for, and then correct me if I'm wrong, but I think to reiterate what that one guy was talking about, the one worker down there is, they were trying to find her to try her, and it's basically she disappeared without a trace.
Yeah, they really were trying at a certain point. I mean, they tried her on the first set of charges, but as more and more was happening, they figured out, there was other charges that could have, or should have been filed at that point, and they were, really trying to get after her for, some of the stuff that she had done after, and stuff they found out after the fact. Missing children.
Mm-hmm.
There are children that were in her care that went missing that nobody has ever heard from. Now, here's the thing. It's an orphan. They hit a certain age.
They're gone.
Yeah, legally they're considered an adult. Did they just decide one day,
I don't want to be here?
I'm going to walk back to Virginia, or, catch a train to Virginia and try to find somebody that I might be related to or find a job.
Yeah.
So, that kind of stuff. And I mean, I was looking for a picture of the pit, and of course, for some reason tonight, I cannot find the one on my computer.
Yeah. I was going to say, I know we have pictures of it.
Yeah, I mean, we have several of them. There's some on our Facebook page, in fact. But you got to realize, like, the homestead is actually closed in the 1878-ish. It basically sits empty for a few years, off and on. Different, things go into it. David Arquette's grandfather actually buys it and turns it into a museum in the 50s, I believe it was. And that museum had run in, up until about 2 years ago, actually, the museum, I believe, closed. And, since then they've been doing some work on the building and changing some of the layouts and stuff, like not some of the configurations of how the building works, like how they closed off that one wall. Last time we were there, remember that was actually opening. That was the doors to the museum at one point.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. Some of the stuff, that we've gotten in there, I don't know if you want to start this out, and I'll kind of just jump in on some of that stuff.
Yeah, sure. Some of the stuff that, unfortunately, again, like a lot of people, they see these shows on TV and whatnot, like Ghost Adventures. I'm not knocking these shows. Please don't get me wrong. Like, I enjoy a lot of them. I like watching them. They're entertainment. They wouldn't be on TV if they didn't have stuff to lure people in or to keep people entertained. So how much of those shows is actually true, I don't know. But my point is, those shows, like, they actually, speaking of Ghost Adventures, they did the orphanage. They were down in the pit. They were down in all the same areas that we were. And it's not like we're anything special. It's not like, oh, yeah, we did the orphanage. Anybody could do the orphanage if you pay for it. They were down there, and they were getting hits left and right. They were getting all kinds of stuff. I'm like, dang, we go down there, and it's dry. And again, it's that happens. You know, I mean, we've been to. No, let me back up a little bit. When you go to a, as I call them, a pay-to-play kind of place, like the orphanage, and again, I'm not trying to discredit the orphanage. It's a great place, great people, you know, and it is creepy as all get out, the story and the history behind it. It's, again, it's the perfect recipe for paranormal. But my problem with a lot of these pay-to-play places is, just like the TV shows, stuff's got to happen in order to have people come back. We've been there, and unfortunately, we haven't had a lot of activity. So, you know what I mean? That kind of, again, kind of makes me think maybe it is a little bit more legitimate than most places because nothing happened. But we did have some stuff, some EVP responses. Chad and I were back by this pit. And again, like, you're in the basement. The picture that's behind us now is the main area. They have a bunch of benches and stuff like that set up for people to sit and talk to EVPs. But if you go back to Chad's picture there, it would be his right, the left of the screen. If you go back, there's a little, like a corridor that leads to the back of the basement that goes into the pit. And again, the pit is just a hole in the wall. Chad and I were back there. I think it was our first time there. We were back at the pit. We were sitting along the opening. Now, oh, there you go. Is that it?
Yeah, that's the
That's
pit.
looking into it, yeah.
That's actually, yes, looking into the actual pit itself.
Yeah, we didn't go in just because we are big guys and the pit area is pretty small and we don't get into small places well. But
I went in.
Oh, yeah, rub it in. Yeah, go ahead, rub it in. Go in.
Yeah,
all right, you greased up and got in the little hole. No, but we were sitting right outside. Actually, as you can see in that picture right there, that is looking into the opening. Chad and I were sitting on the outside. We had the millimeter and the K2 EVP recorder. I think we had the handheld with us. Yes. Or no, we didn't. Or did we? Did we get that on video? I can't even remember. I'm tripping over myself here.
We have the old handheld at that point. Which
That's right. The old, yeah. We can't get we can't get anything else. But anyways, we were there and we were asking a bunch of questions. Now, again, before we go and investigate anywhere, we try and, again, do the scientific method and eliminate any kind of energy sources. So we do a sweep of every area. We went, well, Chad had gone through at that time, and I know, being his background in private investigations and security and all that, he knows what he's doing. He went through. We followed power lines. We followed water lines. We went along the floor in case anything's buried. Anything that we saw that was exposed. We went everywhere to try and find a current of electricity, just so that way we would know that none of our stuff would be thrown off. Right underneath the pit area is a cable that's partially exposed. We put our meters up against it. We didn't get a lot of readings off it. And then when we went up a little bit higher, nothing reacted to it. So as we're sitting there, we're asking questions, and again, to kind of almost validate what was happening is we would ask questions. We were getting hits on the K2 in direct response to the questions. We were getting hits on the millimeter. As we were asking the questions, the temperature was changing. There was a few other, now we had no, like, there's no audio. We didn't hear anything, right? It was just more or less like just visual cues to the questions that we asked. I mean, we didn't get anything on video there, did we?
No. It's been relatively
dead, no pun intended, right?
Dry.
Yeah.
But we haven't really gotten anything on video. We did, like, with the trail cams, we got a weird shadow, but we kind of debunked that after we kind of played with the trail cams a little more at that point. So, yeah, there's nothing like no full-bodied apparition photo video that we have from there.
Unfortunately, yeah. And again, like Chad, we're not trying to discredit. We're not saying it's a waste of time to go there. I will go back in a heartbeat. The sheer, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were down there. You could feel like an energy of some sort. Like I said before, it's like you could almost feel the history. It's very hard to explain.
Yeah, there's definitely a atmosphere.
Yeah.
And I mean, lights out. It's scary. I mean, it's
It is.
scary to think, and you're in there, and we've had some good responses with like the K2s and stuff like that, and we really haven't gotten any EVPs, but you definitely kind of feel like you're not by yourself when you're there.
Right. Now, we had a lot of cameras set up in the upstairs and the basement area of the orphanage. And I don't want to say we never got any video evidence, but we didn't get anything that we felt was worth anything. Most of it, if there were any kind of anomalies, we were able to write them off as something factual. So that, I mean, I'm not gonna. We're not the kind of group that we post everything and say, "Oh my God, look, that piece of dust is a ghost." No, I'm not a big subscriber into the theory of orbs. Some of them are weird. Yeah, Chad, I lost your video there, bud. I see you on Facebook, but I don't see you on the smile time. I don't know. Well, I can still see you on Facebook, so I guess you're still there. But anyways, we don't like posting stuff that is either we debunked it or it's just too subjective. We don't want to waste our time. All right, now I don't see you on Facebook. Are you there? Did I lose you? Wow, there's a huge lag on this thing. Well, I guess we're experiencing some more technical difficulties, everybody. If you could hear me, right on the Facebook page, so I know that we're at least still coming through, and maybe we'll try and get this fixed again. Like I said, I apologize. I don't know if I'm there. I don't know. Anybody? Well, I apologize, everybody, if you are trying to tune into the show. We lost our feed again. I don't know if you could hear me. I don't know. And I am on the wrong end of this software to try and fix anything. So I'm hoping that Chad is doing something in the background to get us back live. Otherwise, you're just going to have to sit there and listen to me ramble. All right, you can still. Leslie says she can still hear me. Can you see me? Where's my video out too? Just Chad is gone.